Hi, how are you? I'm going to discuss an interesting topic today, and I want to um, still reinforce um, the fact that you can send me questions on any topic at the following email address. And the email address is info@jayo.com, info at jayo, jayo.com. Once again, info@jayo.com. I also want to re-announce my new book that's coming soon, and that's called The Healing Self, a revolutionary new plan to supercharge your immune system and stay well for life. And the book is co-written with Rudy Tanzi, who is a neuroscientist. He runs the Genetics and Aging Lab at Massachusetts General Hospital, and he's the vice chair of neurology at Mass General Hospital and a chaired professor at Harvard Medical School. So today I want to talk about a subject that I'm getting a lot of inquiries upon, asking my opinion, a lot of letters, emails on info@jayo.com, where you're welcome to send in your emails. And in one way or another, these queries are about what is the connection between sex and spirituality. This topic comes up a lot, and people also then ask questions about social conventions, mores, morality. People ask questions about whether as a human species we are monogamous. As a species, people ask questions about fidelity, and people ask questions about are spirituality and sexuality in a sense aligned, or are they in a sense antagonistic to each other? The spiritual pursuit and sexual pleasure, do they interfere with each other? Is sexual pleasure in a way an interference with or a block to spiritual development? And do we need to suppress sexual energy or repress sexual energy in order to have any spiritual evolution? As you know, in many religious institutions, monks and nuns are celibate, and that's true of many organized religions, and the celibacy is considered a virtue. But sooner or later we hear about scandals in religious institutions that have to do with the breakdown of that imposed morality. So this is a question that's obviously very important, and we should address it. So if you're willing to be patient for 15 seconds, and then I will come back and talk about this issue, which seems to be very important to a lot of people. And the issue is, what can we say about sex and spirituality? Are they both means to higher consciousness, or are they in conflict with each other? So in the meanwhile, maybe you can reflect on this and tell me what you think. Are they in conflict with each other. The pursuit of sexual pleasure and the pursuit of spiritual evolution. Are they in conflict with each other, or are they actually helpful in the evolution of our spirit, or our consciousness, or what we call self-awareness? So I'd like your opinion, but I'll be back with my own insights in 15 seconds. So I'm back, and I'm seeing your comments. Christiana says they're complementary. Sexual energy and spiritual energy are complementary. Nathan says, forget about this, make Jesus your salvation. Suzra says, if both exist inside us, then they're both equal. Ramanand Dixit says, as a Rishi tradition. Arthur says, if you do it right. Jenny Fox says, hello from beautiful snow. Jenny Khanmi says, if you do it correctly. Alison McLean says, the furnace of creation, one and the same, sex and spirit. Elizabeth says, well, you're sending your comments so fast I can't even catch them. So somebody says, Tammy says, why can't both go along? Meta-human. Okay, let me share with you my insights on this very important topic. I have 12 points to share with you on the relationship between sex and spirituality. And we can actually extend this conversation. If you want, we can even do a series or a podcast on sex and spirituality. But it all depends on your interest and if you think this is a good idea. Okay, so let's go over my points, the points I've made, and let's see how much you agree, disagree, and we can actually continue and extend this conversation in the future if you want. Point number one. Sexual energy is the primal and creative energy of the universe. I'll repeat that. Sexual energy is the primal and creative energy of the universe. All things that are alive come from sexual energy. In animals and other life forms, sexual energy expresses itself as biological creativity. Why? Because sexual desire ultimately results in a biological organism. In humans, sexual energy can be creative at more than the physical level. So, whilst in other animals, sexual energy is purely biological creativity. In humans, sexual energy can be creative at all levels: physical, emotional, and spiritual. In any situation, when we feel attraction or arousal or awakening or alertness or passion or interest or inspiration or creativity or enthusiasm or inspiration. Remember, the word inspiration means to be in spirit, in touch with spirit. The word enthusiasm means to be one with God, on theos. So in any situation where we feel attraction, arousal, awakening, alertness, passion, interest, inspiration, excitement, creativity, enthusiasm, In each of these situations, sexual energy is at work. It may not be obvious, but it's at work. Whenever we feel these states of awareness, the ones that I just mentioned, we must put our attention on the energy that we are experiencing. And if we nourish it with our attention, and if we put an emotional component to it, and if we experience it with joy, and if we keep it alive in our awareness, then we become passionate lovers of life. In art, in science, in all relationships. So that's my point number one. That sexual energy is the primal and creative energy of the universe. Point number two, sexual desire is sacred and chaste. Without it, there would be no life. Therefore, the suppression of sexual energy is false, ugly, and unchaste. I know people might object to this, but I'm only expressing my opinion at the moment. So once again, sexual desire is sacred and chaste. The suppression of sexual energy is false, ugly, and unchaste. Point number three. During sexual union, there's union between flesh and spirit. So, in many religious interpretations, I would say religious ideological frameworks, sex is profane, spirit is sacred. So there's this distinction between that which is profane and that which is sacred. Sex is considered profane and spirituality is considered sacred. But during sexual union, there is union between flesh and spirit. It's obvious, right? If that sexual union leads to joy and creativity and new life, it is coming together as a result of the union of flesh and spirit. Point number 4, bliss, carefreeness, and playfulness are the essence of sex. Bliss, carefreeness, and playfulness are the essence of sex, but so are they the essence of our spirit, right? And here's a very important point I want to make. Any relationship that is based on need is ultimately doomed for failure. But any relationship that comes from joy, giving, playfulness, ultimately leads to ecstasy. And there are many kinds of ecstasy. So there's physical ecstasy, the delight that comes from the arousal of our senses. There's mythical ecstasy, where the gods and goddesses inside us start to waken up, the archetypal energies inside us start to awaken. And then there's sacred ecstasy when we have direct experience of the divine. So it all starts with bliss, carefreeness, playfulness, joy, and giving. Therefore, they are the essence of both sex and spirituality. Number 5. If somebody can actually make notes and add to this links afterwards, all these bullet points, I'll be very grateful. And maybe I can do that as well later. Okay, point number 5. To improve your sexual experiences, get rid of your expectations. Actually, to improve the quality of your life, get rid of your explanations. And what am I saying? To To improve the quality of your life, get rid of your expectations and also the need for explanations for everything. So, to improve your sexual experiences, get rid of your expectations. So, these expectations are primarily in three areas. The first area is performance. It's exemplified in the question, how am I doing? How am I doing? Okay, the second expectation is in the area of feeling, exemplified in the question, how am I feeling? You don't have to ask yourself how you're feeling. Feeling is obvious. And the third area of expectations is security, exemplified in the question, do you love me? Do you love me? Comes from insecurity. Doesn't matter if you love me or not, if I love you. Okay, so this is point number 5, to improve your sexual experiences or experiences in life in general. Get rid of your expectations. Point number 6, in sex, as in all areas of life, resistance is born of fear. And all resistance is ultimately mental. It implies judgment against what is being felt. Once again, all resistance is born of fear. All resistance is mental. It implies judgment against what is being felt. Sex becomes a problem when it gets mixed up with hidden emotions such as shame, guilt, and anger. Point number 6. Resistance is born of fear. Point number 7. Point number 7. Sexual intimacy is the road to the taste or experience of true freedom, because it is the one area of life in which we can become completely uninhibited and free. So, of course, that requires intimacy with yourself. If you're not comfortable with yourself or intimate with yourself, then you will not be comfortable or intimate with others. Point number 7. Sexual intimacy is the road to the taste or experience of true freedom. So once again, point number 7 is about freedom. Freedom comes from true intimacy with yourself and others without judgment. Point number 8. Sexual fulfillment occurs when the experience comes from playfulness instead of need. I've said that. In fact, that's the essence of all relationship. Frequently, people bring their conflicts and needs into their sexual experience. When sex is used to fulfill needs, it leads to addiction. When sex comes from playfulness, the result is ecstasy. And I've mentioned 3 kinds of ecstasy: physical, mythical, sacred. Point number 9. All problems related to sex, neurosis, deviancy, sexual misbehavior, violence, abuse can be traced to resistance, suppression, and repression, not to the sexual urges themselves. If we were allowed to discover our urges, desires, and emotions, I'll repeat that. If we were allowed to discover our desires, urges, and emotions without outside inhibition, they would not go to extremes. Extremism in any form is a reaction to repression, inhibition, and suppression. I'll repeat that. Extremism in any form is a reaction to repression, inhibition, and suppression. And that is also the extremism in religion. It's the extremism in politics that we're seeing these days. It's the extremism that ultimately can result in violence. Aggression and violence are the shadow energies of fear, and should I say impotence. I'll repeat that. Aggression and violence are the shadow energies of fear and impotence. Impotence, not only physical, but impotence, emotional, and basically frustration, rage, anger, guilt, shame, depression. Okay, so that's once again point number 9. All problems related to sex, neurosis, deviancy, sexual misbehavior, violence, and abuse can be traced to resistance, suppression, and repression, not to the sexual urges themselves. Point number 10. Point number 10. Sex is a means of escaping our little ego or our little self. It is many people's only experience of meditation. Because sex can lead to transcendence. In fact, in many languages, the word for orgasm is little death. Timelessness, transcendence, a union between lover and beloved. Union between seer and scenery, between observer and observed, which is ultimate reality, that there is no separation. So, point number 10 again, sex is a means of escaping our little self or ego. Okay, now, point number 11, very important. Meaningful sex has to be value-based. Once again, meaningful sex has to be value-based. Values are personal. Each situation that has sexual energy in it involves the whole human being and their entire value system. So every sexual situation is not just physical, it's physical, emotional, spiritual. One's values may be different from the others, so my values may be different from yours, and I have no right to be the moral judge of your values. As you know, values are social constructs. It is important, however, to have core values and respect them. Without values, we become spiritually bankrupt. I'll repeat that. Without values, we become spiritually bankrupt. Sexual energy and sexual experience will never cause problems and will always be joyful if lovers share the same values. Okay, so when lovers share the same values, there's never any problem. Values are social constructs, and they're actually programmed into us in our childhood. Number 12. True intimacy is union between flesh and flesh, between subtle body and subtle body, which is subtle body is mind, intellect, and ego, and between soul and soul. Soul is our core consciousness, which is in seed form, contains karma, memory, and desire. So when there is union between flesh and flesh, between subtle body and subtle body, and between soul and soul, then we realize that sexual energy is sacred energy. When we have restored the sexual experience to the realm of the sacred, our world will become chaste and divine. It will be holy and it will be healed. Okay? Now, by the way, that painting behind me is by a great Indian artist called Hussein. In many ways, it embodies what I have said in these 12 points. The snake over there, the snake, it represents the ego, which has to be tamed. Okay. Those two characters over here, they are Shiva and Shakti, the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And over here, Shakti, the goddess, is paying homage to the tree of life, to the tree of existence. So, in many ways, that is a painting that signifies erotic intelligence, eros, the sacred, divine that leads to spirit as well. Well, I hope this makes some sense to you. Happy to continue this conversation if you want. But in the meanwhile, let's think about these 12 points, and I would love your feedback. Yes, Ramanand Dikshit, that's an M.F. Hussain painting. Shiva and Shakti, the divine feminine, the divine masculine, exist in all of us. So, relationship goes through many stages: attraction, infatuation, communion, intimacy, sexuality, surrender, non-attachment, finally ecstasy. And if you want, I can continue on this topic in the future. But I think enough for today. Thank you.